are live. So I'll wait a few seconds to see if anybody turns up, because I did put a message on vk.com warning people that I'd be live at this time. I'll try and leave a message on YouTube in future, but I don't believe that they actually share my stuff anymore. They're not interested in the Mr. Skype Lessons channel because they're not really interested in education. Now, today we're going to look at a student's essay once again. Yesterday, we looked at the first 2 paragraphs, and now we're going to look at the final 3 paragraphs. And I thought that these final 3 paragraphs had fewer mistakes, certainly, far fewer mistakes. Let me turn off vk.com, otherwise we'll hear it. So good morning, Learn English with Donish. I thought there were far fewer mistakes on this part, and of course that's why it reads better. But I actually enjoyed the content of the whole lot, because I actually think that the doctor's absolutely right. That obesity is perhaps a much bigger problem than flu or colds, which of course they are a problem if you're really old or you have other illnesses and you catch them, then of course they can be really serious. But I actually believe that obesity leads to a lot more illnesses than the winter flu season. So good morning, New Zealand. Okay, so and good morning, Amit in India. Yeah, please understand, Amit, I will not be putting anything on my YouTube channel. I just saw your comment on YouTube, and it will all be on my website. I don't want you to go to the enemy. I want you to come to my website, okay? So let's get started. I don't like to faff around. A second point to consider is how these transformations increase malnourishment. Now, this student has a problem with singular and plural pronouns, and we can see it again. We don't say that and then a plural noun. We say these or those and a plural noun, and we say this or that and a singular noun. And if we've just mentioned something and we want to refer to what we've just mentioned, which is very, very close, then we use this or these. And if we want to refer to something that seems further away or is the secondary point, then we use that or those. Okay, so we need these transformations, not was increasing or were increasing. I would say just increase. And it's because we're talking about every day, every week, every month, every year, these transformations increase malnourishment. You could use a different tense. There's nothing wrong with saying these transformations have increased malnourishment. In fact, that would be a good expression, a good tense to use, because it shows that they have a present result, yeah, that these transformations in society have had a result in the present, and that is malnourishment. Yeah, these transformations are not positive, they are negative, and they have increased malnourishment. So there are a number of different tenses you could use, but if you use the past, then it does cut it off from the present moment. And I'm not sure you really want to do that. I think present simple or present perfect works much better here. Okay, they may result. Yeah, we're still talking about the transformations. So we need a plural pronoun, they, not it. It makes my brain think, well, what? Because I can't see a singular pronoun in the previous sentence. Well, I suppose there's point or something like that. But clearly it's not referring to transformations. If you say it doesn't. I mean, the native brain will not make a connection between between it and a plural noun. So they may result in the immune system weakening. Yeah, we say the immune system. We don't just say immune system. In the immune system weakening, because we're telling you which system. Which system? The immune system, not the circulatory system, not the reproductive system, but the immune system. Consequently, they, yeah, let's keep the pronoun plural, they bring in tow, we're still talking about the transformations, they bring in tow, they cause, they lead to, or they bring with them. I like this expression. It's not one which I often use, but it's one which I recognize, certainly. So they bring in tow an even greater number of other illnesses. Now, you can say a wide number of, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And this is why this mistake is a bit of a shame, because you can say a wide number of. That's a great collocation. But when you put the even there, even only works with comparatives here. You can't say an even wide number. You've got to say an even wider number of, or an even greater number of. The even really makes it comparative. Yeah, you've got to use a comparative form because of the even, or get rid of the even. That's one more possibility. You could say, blah, 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 blah. Consequently, they bring in tow a wide number of other illnesses. That would be fine. I wouldn't correct that at all. That's a good sentence. Okay, and so unlucky. The student was very close here, unlucky. In fact, various infectious diseases have also been presenting higher incidence lately. And this lately is a signal word. It's a signal word for present perfect tense most of the time. You might see it in past simple sometimes, but often it sounds wrong in past simple. I highly recommend that you use present perfect when you use the adverb lately or recently. And so in this sentence, in fact, various infectious diseases have also been presenting higher incidence lately. This verb present, again, I thought I could tell that a doctor had written this, just because to present symptoms, or when symptoms present, because you can use it both ways round, it's kind of an ergative verb. And if you want more information about ergative verbs, you'll have to see the lesson I've made on YouTube. But this verb to present, it's very often misused by students, but this student has used it correctly. Now, the first meaning of to present is to present a show, and you can even present yourself, but the most obvious way that we use present is when you have a presenter of a show and he presents the show. Okay, that's one way we use present. But another way, which is really quite rare, which is in medicine, is when symptoms present or patients present their symptoms. And so this is a correct use of the word to present. And if you look it up on the dictionary and scroll down right to the bottom of all of the meanings, you will find this usage of to present. Students usually use it incorrectly when they use it as if it means to give somebody a present. And it doesn't mean that. Yeah, you don't present somebody, I don't know, a toy for Christmas. No, you don't. Okay, you can award somebody something, and that sometimes is present somebody with something when you award them with something, but it's not give somebody a present. Okay, so if you're using it like that, stop, because it's certainly wrong. Okay, so this is good. Those symptoms in various infectious diseases have also been presenting higher incidence lately. Furthermore, there is strong evidence linking cancer to the consumption of highly processed food. Now, here we're saying linking cancer to is a preposition here. It is not to plus infinitive. Yeah, I want you to make a really strong, I want you to separate to as a preposition, like I look forward to seeing you. Yeah, that's a preposition. And it's because look forward to is a phrasal verb. Yeah, you've got look, and then you've got preposition forward, preposition to. I don't want you to think that to is always followed by infinitive, because it's not. I look forward to seeing you. Yeah. And there are other phrasal verbs where there's a to and then there's a gerund and it's not an infinitive. So don't think that any time you see a to, yeah, like related to or linking to, that you're going to have an infinitive, because you're not. It's just a preposition here. And this is why, because it's a preposition, it needs to be followed by a noun. Yeah, so I am related to my grandfather, noun. Yeah, and here, I don't know, this company is linked to that company, something like that. But here we must have a noun after to, because to is a preposition. So we've got here linking cancer to the consumption, and not to consume, which is a verb. We need a noun, the consumption, and we need the, because this is noun of noun. Yeah, the consumption. What kind of consumption? The consumption of highly processed food. Okay. So certainly we need a noun after the preposition to. Prepositions are always followed by nouns. So the consumption of highly processed food, comma, mainly when, again, the subject was missing in this sentence. So I've got to put it in. When such food. Now this determiner, such, is an interesting determiner, because just like so, it can often stand in for an adjective. Yeah, it's standing in for an adjective. It's often thought of as a pronoun, but notice that this such is not standing in for a noun, it's standing in for highly processed. Yeah, mainly when highly processed food. And that makes it a very odd word because there aren't many other words that can do that. Yeah, but mainly when such food, I wrote that just to make it really clear that this is highly processed food, contains, contains lots of preservatives and saturated fat. Okay, certainly another important aspect. Now, this is a very common mistake. Very often students write other and then they have a singular noun. You can't have, other is for plural, yeah? Other friends, other bananas. You might have it with an uncountable noun, yeah? Other information or other communication, but another for anything which is countable. So another aspect, another issue, another problem, another question. Yeah, it's going to be another plus singular noun. I hope that's clear. Okay. So certainly another important aspect not to be neglected, I've put that in commas because it sounded like a contrasting phrase, is the economic negative effects. These health issues, okay, these health issues, I've got to change this to these because issues, plural. So I've got to change that. Impose on the usually active segment of such populations. So why? The noun of noun, the active segment of such populations. When you're doing the noun of noun, you're specifying what kind of noun it is. So you need the definite article. You need a the. The only expression with noun of noun where you won't have a the is a quantifying expression. A number of, a lot of, a few of. Yeah, they're pretty vague. And so you don't have a the. But most other constructions with noun of noun, you will see a the before them. Okay. If anybody would like to buy any of my books, you can buy them right now. You go to skype-lessons.com and you send me your money as soon as possible. Do it right now. Okay. Evidently, this has the potential to generate unemployment. Unlucky. After the word potential, it's the potential to do something always. Yeah, this student has the potential to succeed. Yeah, this essay has the potential to get full marks always. Okay, which in its turn, unlucky. We don't say by its turn, we say in its turn. In turn, yeah, in turn means, you know, when it's your turn, yeah, or consequently, it means consequently here, yeah, it means which consequently in its turn, the next step tends to worsen the health situation. Notice that worsen, strengthen, lengthen, deepen, all these words that relate to weaken, strengthen, dimensions very often like length, width, height, yeah, widen, lengthen, deepen, strengthen, weaken, they end in an en, yeah, and worsen. There isn't one for get better though. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Okay, in its turn tends to worsen the health situation. The health situation didn't sound like a very common phrase to me. And so I do recommend public health as perhaps a more common collocation here. It tends to worsen public health. But I didn't see anything wrong with it, so I just put it in brackets. Okay, moreover, these, again, it's got to be these. You'll get penalized if you're mixing up singular and plural pronouns. So be careful here. This was something that I really wanted to bring to the students' attention because it's very important and we don't want to lose marks for mixing up singular and plural. Of course not. Okay, then we've got, which in its turn tends to, moreover, these acquired bad alimentary habits. He's used this difficult word twice and I had to look it up. And this is why twice I've offered another word. It's correct. And so I don't want to say it's wrong, but I do want to warn the doctor that this is a very difficult or it's a very medical word. Yes, very medical doesn't sound right. It's a medical word. So dietary or nutritional, the patient would understand much quicker. If you're talking to the patient about their health, I would use nutritional or dietary because I think if you use alimentary, a lot of them won't know what you mean, like I didn't when I read this. So dietary habits inevitably add, yeah, habits, add. We've had a few mistakes with singular and plural verbs as well in present simple. So be careful here. You will be penalized again if you're making mistakes with add or adds. So they add, the habits add a burden in the long term on the health systems. Notice I've added a few articles there. The long term, it's always the long term, the short term. And the health systems, yeah, it's always the system of health, the noun of noun. And so the health systems, in many cases, not able to deal with. Now, I didn't like the new task because it wasn't very clear. I thought, really, what the student is doing here is stating that these hospitals, this health service is not able to cope with the much bigger, the much greater amount of work. Yeah. And the way we put that is the increasing load. And I liked to use the word load because we've already got the word burden in this sentence. And a burden is a load, it's a weight on your shoulders. And I think that because this whole essay is about obesity, it's about being overweight, why not use a lot of language connected to weight? Yeah, like burden, load. We had heavy consumption of junk food at the start. It's a good idea. It sounds good. And so increasing load sounded best to me. Yeah, that it was harder and harder for the health systems to cope with the increasing load, with all these new patients, with all these new diseases. Okay, so obesity-related illnesses, there's no such word as overweightness. Perhaps there is in some dictionaries, but I've never heard a single person say overweightness. Obesity is the noun. Obesity-related illnesses demand, in many cases, complex and expensive treatments. Furthermore, those services are already struggling with scarce resources and overwhelmed by diseases typical of those poor countries. Excellent. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And I do like the linking expressions that the student's using. I think the linking expressions are used very well, like certainly, moreover, furthermore, consequently, we had earlier. In fact, all of those are being used very, very nicely. Okay, so credit to the student there. He's done a good job. Okay, so we're right down to the bottom now. Let me make sure I've got it so you can see the last line. So to sum up, the Western food industry has definitely been. Now look at this. This is adverb position again. This came up yesterday. I did a class on it earlier in the week. When you got an adverb and you're putting it in the mid position, it doesn't go after been. It goes between the first two verbs. Yeah. In English, we often get a verb chain. We have can, have, been, done, or something like that. Yeah, that's a verb chain of can, have, been, and done. When you get something like that, and you don't often get that, but when you do, put it between the first two verbs and you will get it right 99% of the time. Yeah, I don't want to say 100% because adverbs are a nightmare and there's certain tricky adverbs like even or only, which kind of have different rules. But yeah, it has definitely been. It's got to be here. And so this is just following the rule that we learned about adverbs and where to place them in the mid position. And definitely was one of the adverbs I wrote on the board, like also, almost, that must go in the mid position. Okay, especially on developing countries. Now I changed in to on because we say an influence on somebody. Yeah, and so a noxious influence on developing countries. Consequently, one strategy would be to instigate ideas to revert this trend or revert these trends. Be careful with singular and plural. Yeah, this trend or these trends. And I tried to simplify this sentence. I do think a lot of the time simplicity is good. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with simplicity. I think sometimes the essays with the most mistakes, these mistakes are made because the student is very often translating very complicated sentences from their own language and trying to put them in English. And sadly, it doesn't work. I think the best way is to go for simplicity and make the point as clear as possible. So some of these sentences were really, really clear. I think most of them were really complex. Sometimes they work, which is great. And so, for example, you can see on that last sentence in the middle paragraph, nothing wrong with that at all. That's great. But be careful and try and be as clear as possible, write as clearly as possible, and try to use expressions that you have already heard in English, because then you know that it's a collocation that works. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the questions now. So I've already said if anyone's after my book, just go to the website. I won't mention anything else about that. So yeah, noxious influence was not certainly not my collocation. It was the author's collocation. So well done to that author. That sounded good to me as well. I didn't see any problem with that. Good morning, Mary, and good morning, Bashir. We say other illnesses, exactly, but we say another illness. Okay, I hope that's been useful to everybody. Excuse me. I'll be taking this video off YouTube very, very soon. So if you do want to learn more about anything that I'm teaching, then you need to come to my website. All of the stuff will be on my website. All my previous lessons from the last week will be on my website, and they come with exercises that you can do. So please, if you want to support me, if you want to keep watching these classes, then you need to go to my website. I don't work for YouTube anymore. I put everything that I put on YouTube just goes up for a few hours and then it comes down again, and you can find it on my website. I just use YouTube to advertise my business. Yeah, I use YouTube to advertise my website. For me, I hate YouTube as much as I hate the Nazi press. It's the same thing, in my opinion, exactly the same thing. YouTube have brought in totalitarianism, and that's why I don't want anything to do with them, in the same way that I don't want anything to do with Hitler. Exactly the same thing. So please come to the website if you fancy learning more, and please, you can support me by buying my books. That's one way you can support me, but you know, you don't have to do that. You can just come to the lessons and click like. That's a great way to support me as well. Please don't ask me to give away my books for free, because I find that insulting. But it's just that it took a very long time to write, you see. And so, of course, I didn't write them to give them away for free. But I tell you what I do give them away for free to anybody who comes for my private classes. And so, and the same goes for any of the other thousands of English books that I have in electronic form on my computer. They get given to my students, obviously, for free. And so if you want something for free, you got to do something for me as well. Yeah. Okay. So thanks everybody for coming. I hope to see you all next time, which will be tomorrow morning or tomorrow.